Hey, another video with my face in it. Lucky, it must be your lucky day. So I wanted to expand a little bit on what I talked about in my studio tour video, and that is buy when you have to, but build when you can. When you're first thinking about dipping your little toe in the big screen printing pool, you're gonna come across all the equipment that you're going to need to get started. And that is probably gonna scare you a little bit because screen printing equipment is very expensive. I mean, you're talking spending at least $5,000 on just like the most basic equipment, up to $10,000 or even more for like pretty good equipment. But I don't think you need to spend all that money right up front. I mean, I haven't even spent that much money getting started with screen printing. So what should you buy? Obviously you can't build things like a flash dryer or a conveyor dryer, or even a printing press. I think that's something you should probably just buy. In my opinion, the printing press is the most important part of screen printing. I think I Like to Make Stuff has a video on how to build a multicolor press, but me personally, I don't trust myself to build something that rotates like that. There's just too many mechanics to it, and I know anything that I try to put together is not going to be very sturdy or reliable. So what can you build? Well, I think you can build an exposure unit. I think you can build a washout booth. Those are pretty simple things to put together even for people that don't have a lot of experience building things. So let's talk about exposure units. There are quite a few people that don't think you should build your own exposure unit. You know, they think that the exposure unit is the most important part about the screen printing process because, you know, it all starts with a screen, right? Well, it all starts with artwork, but, you know, the artwork goes on a screen. And if you can't get a good screen, then, you know, your print is messed up and it just goes all downhill from there. And I understand that. I understand the logic behind that. I get it. You can't mess up your screen, right? But, you know, let's not overcomplicate this. An exposure unit is really just a fancy, dare I say, overpriced light bulb. It's true that some of these exposure units have nice features to them, like the vacuum seal. It makes it super easy to get a nice, clean stencil. I'm not knocking those kinds of exposure units because, you know, I don't know how to build a vacuum seal yet. But there are exposure units that cost over $1,000 that don't have those features. So that's when you kind of have to take a step back and say, it's just a light. If you have a good light and a good piece of glass, then you can get a nice screen. This is my exposure unit, and I made it using just pre-cut plywood that I found at Lowe's. There's really not much to it. It's just a box with a glass panel on top and a light inside of it. And that's really all it needs to be. If you do decide to build your own exposure unit, I would recommend building one like this. I've just got two tips for you. The first is you need a good light. I'm using a 50-watt UV LED light that I got off Amazon for like 40 bucks. I'm using photopolymer emulsion, but I believe it also works with dual cure emulsion. And then the other tip that I have is to get crystal clear glass. I think a lot of people that build their own exposure units just get whatever glass they might have laying around, like from a picture frame or something like that. But you actually need something a little better than that. You need crystal clear glass, which means low iron glass or starfire glass. A lot of clear glass isn't really clear. They have some iron content in them that gives them like this almost greenish hue to them, especially when you look at them from the side. But low iron or starfire glass is much clearer and therefore more of the light will go through it. So to answer the question, should you build your own exposure unit? I say yes. As a big DIY kind of guy, I usually just say, if you can build it yourself, do it. And if you're trying to save a little bit of money, it just makes sense. After all was said and done, my exposure unit is about 24 by 24, and it cost me about $175, maybe $200 to make. The most expensive part was the glass. That was a little bit under $100. The light was about $40 from Amazon. The wood was about $30, maybe $40. So really not that bad compared to some of these other exposure units around that same size. And if $200 is still too much for you to spend on an exposure unit, then you could always build the classic 2x4 one with the legs on the bottom, the arm that comes up and over and the light pointing down. Those you can usually build for like under 50 bucks. Whatever your method is for building the exposure unit, I say just do it, make some screens and start printing. Anyway, that's it for this video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. It helps let me know that you care about the stuff I'm making, and yeah, thanks for watching.